NFL Week 3 Market Outlook. Thursday night football, Steelers at Browns. This is definitely no Chargers versus Chiefs. This is Mitch Trubisky versus Jacoby Brissett, who looked pretty decent. Had one of the best statistical profiles of any quarterback last week, in fact. First, the Jets defense. But nonetheless, it was certainly surprising since many people were writing him off. We didn't speak positively about him. This line has been waffling. I think it opened 3.5, got all the way up as much as 5.5. Now it's back to 4. I was reading that one of the impetuses for it to shoot up was, I believe it was Right Angle Sports came out and gave the Browns as one of their picks. And that was a market moving view. I always loved to fade those. We faded them on whether you knew it or not, in fact. Right Angle Sports was one of the catalysts that pushed that Cardinals line from 3 all the way up to 6. And then we came in and bought that 6. And then you even had the alt lines, as you talked about in your NFL Reflections piece this week. That was a really nice cash. But so Steelers Browns, any view on this one?
No, it's tough because I'm not ready to buy Jacoby Brissett. Certainly not like a quarterback where I have conviction. Like, he could pop up for a good week here or there, but it's not someone I have confidence and conviction that Jacoby Brissett's going to play well. With that said, it's impossible to make an argument for the Steelers, I think, right now. I think they were bad before TJ Watt got hurt. You're not going to learn anything from a game against the Patriots. I don't think their offense is capable, especially early in the season, where the offensive coordinators have really had no time to install a new system. What that looks like in week 13, I have no idea. But right now, at least, the Patriots offense is not good. So I'm not taking away anything from how the Steelers played last week. Defensively, I think they're a disaster. And offensively, they haven't been able to get anything going. And the Browns feels a little icky, but I think 4 is probably a little too shallow.
What happened to George Pickens?
He's played a lot. He said, quote, that he's open on 90% of the routes, but he's just not being thrown the ball. Their offense is a train wreck right now.
And this is one of the things we were just talking about offline, that week 3 can be tricky, potentially even more tricky than week 2. Because there's a lot of week 1 performances maybe you're not necessarily buying into. And then you get this week 2 performance that maybe is not a follow-through performance of what you saw in week 1. And now you don't know, is this team more like week 1? Is it more like week 2? And Jacoby Brissett is a great example of a very underwhelming performance week 1 versus the Panthers, and then comes back with a lightning performance versus the Jets. For all intents and purposes, the Browns won that game versus the Jets, and as we all know, they ended up losing outright and not covering, of course. But I think you make a good point in that Jacoby Brissett can show up from time to time. He's got enough skill set to do that, but it's no corner turn. One of those top discussions between week 1 and week 2 was Geno Smith. That didn't follow through.
Yeah. What is it about the Steelers that Jacoby Brissett has an angle? For instance, we can talk about this later. Lamar Jackson is really good against the blitz, or really good against man coverage. We know the Patriots are going to play man coverage. That's a particular angle why this quarterback can shine. Granted, Lamar Jackson, you can expect to play well more often than not. But for a player like Jacoby Brissett, you need some particular angle which says this is why he's going to show up. Because or else, what are you betting on? I'm picky when I'm betting. I really want to have conviction in the bets that I make, because I can choose, unlike the book, where I put my money. And this is just not a spot where I'm willing to bet on Jacoby Brissett, because who knows who's going to show up.
The other thing is the Steelers, while they have not looked good, they've certainly been pesky. In past seasons, we've seen the same from Mike Tomlin coached teams, is even if the talent is underwhelming, they just keep themselves in games, end up squeezing out wins that they shouldn't have won, or ended up covering games that you thought they had no business even being competitive in. And I think this could definitely be one of those games. A very short turnaround time off a heartbreaking loss where the Browns justifiably beat the Jets. That was a win that they really needed to have.
Yeah.
And how long are they obsessing about that before moving on to the Steelers? The Browns are not a team that I have a ton of confidence in to cover big number. Ravens at Patriots, this was 3.5 when we were previewing it Sunday night. Moved down to 3, now down to 2.5. The Ravens are dealing with like defensive injuries, secondary injuries. got destroyed by Miami, particularly in that fourth quarter. In New England, this is basically saying that the Patriots are going to be viable to win this game straight up.
Yeah, they got through 3.
Yeah,
this is shocking to me. And I know where it's coming from. There are some sharp people on the Patriots side here, which I think has moved the number. But I don't get this line at all. I really don't. We discussed last week the Dolphins were almost a perfect matchup to take advantage of where the Ravens are weakest, which is their secondary was banged up. First off, it's going to get healthier. Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey are only going to be healthier than they were last week, coming off injuries. Or even for Marcus Peters' case, just like getting off some rust for his first game action in 2 years. But the Patriots don't have any capability to separate quickly like the Dolphins did. The Dolphins were winning because Waddle and Hill were open on every play, beating these cornerbacks. Jacoby Myers is probably the Patriots' best receiver. He's hurt. Very uncertain to play. I don't see how they're going to take advantage of where the Ravens are weak. On the other side of the ball, all the things that the Patriots defense does well, Lamar Jackson's good at. Right? The Patriots have perennially played man at a top 5 rate every single year, and Lamar Jackson's one of the best quarterbacks against man coverage because he's so good running the ball. Just from a fundamental value perspective, these teams I do not think are in the same tier, especially if Lamar Jackson was playing to his potential as he has in the first 2 weeks.
And I'm looking at our consensus market rankings right now. Baltimore 6, New England 18. The market broadly agrees that there is a tier separation. We've had 2 weeks now. Third week can be tricky, especially for those games where you've seen teams play 2 different styles, 2 different performances that make you say, well, how are they now going to show up in this third week? And I think if the Ravens play like they did versus the Jets, then the Patriots are definitely live here to certainly win straight up.
We even discussed this last week, which is, and we almost got the answer to our question of, did Lamar Jackson now run in week 1 because it was the Jets or because it's going to be a feature of their game plan? And he did run last week against the Dolphins, which leads me to believe that, no, they were just holding back against the Jets. Also, just another angle of this game, the Ravens are a particular team who could take advantage of kind of the whatever's going on in the offensive room with the Patriots. I don't trust Mac Jones under pressure. I don't trust Mac Jones against the blitz. Right? He doesn't have Josh McDaniels helping him out, making pre-snap adjustment. I don't think he's going to be particularly good against aggressive defenses. And the Ravens are extremely aggressive. They're always blitzing at an extremely high rate. And I think they take advantage of that. Mac Jones is horrible against the blitz. And he's without his key helper from last year in Josh McDaniels. I just don't trust this coaching staff. I don't trust this offense to get anything really going.
So this is a very questionable line move against kind of the fundamental evaluation of this matchup. It's very hard to find really any yellow flags about this. Are you willing to ignore the market movement?
I'm willing to capitalize on it. I'm glad they gave my alternate line more juice.
Yeah, I'll
but
take
also,
the 3 plus 103. Sell the half point.
The other thing about the Ravens in particular is that when they win big, right? It's something like 63% of the games in the Lamar Jackson era, or 63% of wins, excuse me, they've won by 10 or more points. So I love either they're losing, or it's gonna be a real close one, or they're blowing them out. Give me the 9.5. Love the 9.5 this week.
I think will be a little bit more fun to bet live.
Oh yeah.
All right, Bills at Dolphins. This line's moved. I didn't think that it would move this sharply given what we saw from the Dolphins. I understand the Bills blew out the Titans. We had the Bills in Circa, closed the week 3-2, sitting at 7-3. Feels very nice. But now, so they're 6. Sunday night, it was 4.5, given, 6 is almost as much as a key number as 7 these days. Do you still like it here at 6? Is there any other kind of ways that you might want to express a position on this game?
I think this is a great contest play. You talk about like week 3 being hard because you don't know which team in week 1 or week 2 is going to show up. I think we have a pretty decent sense that the Dolphins offense will look more like week 1 than it will week 2. Why? For all the same reasons we've been saying. The Dolphins are a team that's going to take advantage of weak coverage units, right? Of weak defensive coaching. That's not the Bills. I posted a graph today of the Bills using our drive quality metric, and they're basically breaking the graph at the top right corner. They are absolutely dominant. I don't even know if you can grasp the delta between them and the next best team. And I don't see any reason why they won't be able to move the ball against the Dolphins, who just got shredded by the Ravens. And I'm selling the Patriots. I don't think they're going to get anything going. So their week one, their inability to score means nothing to me. But I don't see the Dolphins competing with the Bills defense here.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'm not impressed with super late rallies in games, because that can happen. You catch a team off guard, or you change something, or defensive injuries start piling up, and a team exploits it, and the other team just can't stop it. Doesn't have the time, doesn't have the resources, doesn't have the health necessary to recover in that game.
And also, teams play softer. They don't play the same defense. Not to mention that Tyreek Hill scored a 65-yard touchdown, lining up one-on-one with no safety help on a rookie. I assure
And then the other one was underthrown, which probably with those Bills safeties gets picked.
Yeah. You trust Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, among the best defensive coaches in the league. That's not happening. You're not going to get that same lapse. You're not going to get the same gifts that kind of allowed for the Miami comeback.
Another reason why I like Bills here is, so far right now on our market consensus rankings, Miami is up to 10th. The sharp move higher off that performance versus the Ravens, pretty much just in the fourth quarter. That seems a little bit too high. I'm willing to fade that. Bengals on the road, -5 at the Jets. This was 4.5. It's moved up to 5. Everyone's butthurt on the Bengals. I'm butthurt on the Bengals. You said you liked Bengals alt line on Sunday night. You're willing to ignore the first two performances, acknowledge that the explosive play is going to show up some point in time, maybe in this game.
I think that's right. There's also, as I was doing my Twitter scrolling, noticing that like Robert Saleh plays a ton of cover 1 and cover 3, which are defenses that Joe Burrow has destroyed. And almost with the too high structures, we know Joe Burrow struggles with decision making. That's evident by his sack totals and the fact that even after the revamped line, say what you will about the chemistry and getting better, it's still definitely better than they were last year. He's still taking a lot of sacks, which points to something in his decision making, right? And his ability to read defenses. And I think there's some signal for a quarterback like Joe Burrow in his outcomes depending on which coverage he's playing. And the Jets play a ton of cover 1 and cover 3, and I don't think they're like as adaptable. Robert Saleh strikes me as the guy who's, I'm going to run my defense. We're going to put our best against your best. And I don't think that's going to work against Joe Burrow. He's going to destroy cover 1 and cover 3 as he always does.
What worries me about this line is this is still assuming the Bengals are last year's Bengals. I mean, because this was 7 last year with Mike White at quarterback. And so now there's a difference between 5 and 7 for sure. But it's still a lot of benefit of the doubt that the Bengals are going to comfortably win the game. If the Bengals aren't who we think they are, and the Jets also aren't who we thought they are. Remember how I was voicing concern about that potentially that Jets-Ravens matchup? Maybe Joe Flacco can show a little flash. Maybe he can take advantage of those receivers. It didn't happen week 1, but I was talking about how I still saw them move the ball. Like, it didn't necessarily show up in the score. They turned the ball over out. They made a lot of kind of typical Jets bonehead mistakes. But basically what happened versus the Browns is what I was warning about could potentially happen like in that Ravens game. Whereas, yeah, Joe Flacco, if he's under pressure, he's just going to like collapse and turn to shit. But like, he has enough in him to make some of those game-changing plays that he did versus Cleveland. And do we have confidence in the Bengals defense to get the same type of pressure that you need to get on Joe Flacco to really disrupt that offense? Mike LaFleur is a great OC. I feel like a lot of people ignore just because it's the Jets. But they got some great offensive play calling. Got some great weapons at their disposal now. And if you give Flacco time, he's more than capable of carving you up.
I hear that case. I do. And even just to add some data points, they're like forcing coverage mistakes at the highest rate in the NFL, which I think is a combination of offensive scheme and wide receiver ability. The kind of issue with the argument that I have is that it's almost, you need a bunch of steps for that to happen. It's if A, then B, then C, then D, right? If the offensive line holds up, if the receivers get open, like a lot of things need to go in order for the bull case to happen. There's certainly decent likelihood of that happening. but I would almost rather bet on what's to me more certain, that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins will get open for Joe Burrow to throw deep. With all that said, I really don't hate eyeing a Jets live bet early if the Bengals do hit on the explosive plays, banking on the Jets can very well come back in this game. And I also don't mind hitting the alt line for the Bengals and even betting like a Jets money line.
Yeah.
Trying to create a middle.
This is what I want to see. I want to see if the Jets are able to protect Joe Flacco. That is one singular trigger point for me to want to start taking Jets exposure. Saints -3 +100 at the Panthers. I think this is like still 2.5. Most other places. Saints dealing with a bunch of injuries. Panthers have looked bad versus the Giants and looked bad for pretty much 3 quarters versus the Browns. I really liked the Panthers versus the Giants. And one of the things I think I was in my tiltiness on late Sunday was just like betting on bad teams versus bad teams, thinking that the one bad team is going to be a little bit less bad than the other bad team. So I love the less bad team. Like, just find another opportunity, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like the bad coaching can just compromise everything.
Yeah. Like you attack the Panthers on the ground. That's how you attack the Panthers. That's how teams been doing it for a couple of years. Kamara's out. I don't know if Mark Ingram's going to be the engine of the Saints offense. And I need to see it with the Panthers before I back them.
You've also been very good at basically just saying this is a crappy matchup. There's a lot of questions, or these are just 2 bad teams. So I don't really have too much insight to offer, and I'm not going to be betting this game. So pass. Is this one of those?
Yep.
Okay. Lions at the Vikings. Lions +5.5. This was 7.5 when we were previewing it on Sunday night. Come down at a full 2 points, crossing 2 key numbers through 7, through 6. There's a lot of Lions love. And the consensus market ranking, still only 25th. But we know there's a lot of positive bubbling sentiment on the Lions, especially from betting perspective, since they've been covering machines. And now they're winning outright.
But even in our drive quality metrics, they're the number 1 offense right now. And I don't think the Eagles are a train wreck on defense. I think that's what the Vikings game suggests. I don't know what to make of the Lions. I really don't. Like, why this year are they succeeding so much more than last year? That's a little bit taking me off jumping on board here. This could very easily be a 2-game blip. And like they're hitting on a bunch of explosive plays, relying on that the past 2 weeks, but that could continue. Like, I was all on board the Kevin O'Connell train after week 1. Probably overreacted. But look, if this offense is leading in our drive quality metric, if they're producing at a great rate, I don't think the Vikings are the defense to stop them. Who knows?
Yeah, and the Vikings are a great example, actually, right now, of the difficulty of having 2 games worth of film and just general performance, because there's a lot of sky high sentiment on Vikings after 1 game, and now it's fallen just as fast, if not harder, after a truly miserable game on prime time with a lot of eyeballs. We're also, again, feeding into a very strong pre-existing narrative of primetime Kirk Cousins, again falling flat on his face.
I'm pulling up our power rankings from week 2 only because I think the Vikings went from like 7th to 20th.
Yeah, 20th. I got him 20th.
And where did you have him last week?
Yeah, it was like 7th.
Yeah, that's huge. No one knows what to make of the Vikings. No one knows what to make of the Lions.
The Lions played the Vikings tough twice last year. At this point in time, I don't think it makes any sense to try to get in front of this Lions train. I don't think you necessarily have to ride it, but do you want to try to get in front of it, try to get clever, and then get run over, potentially?
I don't think I'm betting this spot. I think this is an incredibly intriguing. And the only thing I know is that I don't think this line should be 5.5.
All right, Chiefs on the road at the Colts. This is another interesting one.
Down to 5.5.
So this was 6 on Sunday night. And all I've heard is I've been trying to absorb market intelligence, scrolling through Twitter, listening to podcasts, and it's uniformly Chiefs love. It's the Chiefs and Gus Bradley, this dichotomy. How can Mahomes not take advantage of Gus Bradley's defense? Oh, the Colts weren't nearly as good as we thought that they were. And I'm saying they because we certainly didn't.
Yeah.
We never were buying the Colts. They're bad. They're maybe worse even than I thought so far because they put in 2 clunkers for sure versus not even a elite team.
That's the key part though, right? You don't just like stumble upon ties and loss. Bad loss to the Jaguars and Texans, even if the Jaguars aren't improved, even if the Texans aren't as bad as people assume they are.
Yes.
Especially in a game with no real variance.
Certainly, and then also if you're priced to win the division, you lose 2 division games versus the ostensibly the bottom 2 seller team.
That's certainly true. This doesn't happen by accident. Would it be shocking if the Colts went 5-12 this year?
No. I mean,
4-13? No.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts eventually abandon the Matt Ryan experiment. Yeah. One of the things that I was pounding the table on, and I know you agreed during the offseason previews, was the Colts' problems were not just about Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
The quarterback problem looks like the same quarterback problem.
Yeah.
Like it may be worse.
Yeah.
Given that, since you always have the latest injury news on Shaq Leonard, do you know if he's going to play this week or?
Full participation, but that's the same thing.
But yeah, he was full participation last week too. Yeah.
We're not going to get word, I don't think, till
What about Pittman?
Pittman, I haven't seen anything yet. Practice today. Back at practice.
See, this is just one where I want to be cautious about the Chiefs, okay? Because the Chiefs destroyed the Cardinals secondary like we expected them to. And then they should have lost. I want to say should have. Our drive quality says they lost versus Chargers at home.
Yeah.
And only put up 20 points, 20 earned points.
Yeah, the Chargers are a legitimately really good defense.
Okay, right, so you played a legitimately bad defense and torched them. And then you played legitimately good defense and you scored 20.
Where are the Colts?
Middle of the road, probably.
Okay, I think they're a lot closer to the Cardinals than they are the Chargers.
Maybe, but the point that you make a lot of times too is there's a big difference between the 30th ranked defense and the 32nd ranked.
Certainly.
And
if you go back to the week 1 preview I was talking about, the Cardinals are just not going to stop the Chiefs. They're going to score on all their drives. I'd be shocked if they don't score 30 points. And I would
say they don't score 30 points.
You'd say they don't score 30 points.
They don't score 30.
What's the argument to sell the Chiefs here?
It's not to sell.
What makes you say that they're going to play at expectation?
The concerns that I expressed about the Chiefs in the offseason, I feel like have not been ameliorated by them destroying the Cards. Whereas there was a lot of people out there basically saying, see, told you, didn't need Tyreek Hill. This offense is just as good, if not better now. Maybe they have even more weapons. I don't think that's true. And they just played maybe one of the best defenses. So I'm not saying it's dispositive. I'm not saying the Chargers game is dispositive either. I'm not saying, look, they only earned 20 points versus the Chargers. That's a good defense. So it's not to say that they're necessarily bad or they're not as good either.
Yeah.
But I'm still questioning whether or not this offense might be like the offense that we saw like the first half of the season last year. No. Maybe not that bad. Not saying like they're going to score 3 points versus Titans type bad. Yeah. But I'm saying this counterintuitive line movement makes a little bit more sense to like the Ravens-Patriots move. I'm willing to go with you and be like, you know what? I understand there's obviously influential money backing the Patriots to move this because everything suggests to scream Ravens. I would be willing to overlook the market movement and say, let's do it. In fact, I just did. I did it on the stream.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to do that in this instance because I think we've seen the worst of the Colts, especially if Pittman plays. That will certainly make them look better.
Yeah.
I think they can cover if this gets back to 6.
But why?
I don't know if I want to take the 6. The 7 was definitely more attractive. But I think I will not be betting the Chiefs here.
I think the market angles are right. I would just like, is there a fundamental value angle or a game angle?
No.
Okay. We were talking about what's sufficient to happening, and I think the Chiefs' floor is so much higher than everyone else's. I have a lot of conviction they're going to score at least in the 20s. And they're just starting at a huge advantage over the Colts. And I'm willing to bet that there's a decent likelihood that the Colts really suck. Their offense is just bad. In which case, this game's not going to be close.
Yep, that could definitely be true. Remember, it was even a couple of years ago when the Chiefs, maybe it was 2018, when the Chiefs were really ripping. And they went and played the Colts and put in a really weird, bizarre game. They only scored 13 points. I think they ended up squeaking the game out, but it was super low scoring. And that was the first time where it was wow, the Chiefs aren't going to score 30 points every single game. If there is a difference too, if it's sharp money collectively, again, generally sharper bettors, or some singular loudmouth.
Yeah.
And the singular loudmouth I certainly like to fade. That just gives you value.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening here, and I think that's what's happening in the Ravens spot.
Okay, that makes more sense. Raiders 1.5 at the Titans. I like the Titans here. Definitively like the Titans. Plus 1.5. This might move a little bit extra, so I'm gonna wait a little bit. But the Raiders put up essentially 0 points on the Cardinals for a whole half. A depleted secondary. Devontae Adams caught the ball twice. We're very bearish on the Raiders. Now they're on the road versus still a good head coach team. And the Titans have now put in 2 bad performances in a row, a loss to the Giants, and then a complete demolition by the best team in the NFL on Monday Night Football with everyone to see. I'm willing to buy that dip, and I don't think the Raiders should be favorites on the road versus a respectable team like the Titans.
That's fair. What changes in this game script? What are the Titans going to do differently than the previous 2 games? Where's their offense coming from? Take me through the game and how it plays out. The Titans win.
I don't think it's more about that the Titans offense is all of a sudden going to score a bunch of points. It's just that the Raiders aren't going to score points.
Okay, that's fair.
Either.
Okay, that's fine. In which case, I think we could make a case to bet the team total under.
There's other things as well, which is, again, this is one of the things that I criticize a lot of generally good sports bettors, people who have good feel. Because also, this happens in traditional financial markets as well, is sometimes you don't have a super strong fundamental thesis, because if there is, it's usually known then. Other people can visibly discern what that fundamental thesis is. Sometimes it's just about feel. And one of the times, a lot of sports bettors who turn media bettors, then they shy away from those moves because they can't wrap a convenient, compelling narrative around it, so no one wants to buy it. So now they only make bets that have that neat narrative around it.
Yeah.
And those are not the bets that usually win. So this is the type of bet where I would say explain to me what changes, what's different from these teams. I'm saying I don't know exactly, but this just feels right. This feels like the time you buy the dip on the Titans, who are not they're not a bottom 3 team.
I completely agree with you on the field part. That's absolutely true in every way you've described it. But the point I'm pressing on is you're making the assumption the Titans are not a bottom 3 team, and I'm not so sure that's true.
Okay, that's fair.
Team can really be in contention for the number 1 overall pick.
What would give me concern is if the Titans actually are the 32nd best team in the league, aka worst team in the league, because this is more driven off Raiders right now, and our market consensus rankings is 12th. That is common.
Crazy. Yeah. So I would bet the alternate line last week.
One of the reasons why, again, was our strongest preseason fade. And the Raiders are -1.5 favorites on the road. What would keep me more cautious if you really do think that the Titans could be a 31st, 32nd team? That's a different story then.
Yeah.
If they're actually that bad. I don't think they're necessarily that bad, but I certainly allow for that to be true. Because basically I've also outed myself in the sense of I can't necessarily I can't articulate a very strong handicap on this game.
For sure. Does not mean that your reasoning and what's behind your thought process is not legitimate. But that's where I stand here. If just like the Titans can be just so dreadful.
Field trades too work well when there isn't a strong counterpoint as well. Eagles -6.5 at Washington. Everyone loves the Eagles now. 8th right now in our market consensus ratings.
This is a field game, which for me is not having me bet the Commanders, but it's having me off the Eagles. Like when Jalen Hurts is being priced in as the 3rd best quarterback for the MVP conversation, I need 8 weeks to believe that, not 2.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to back the other side, but I'm not willing to jump all on the train.
On Washington, we've had 2 games now where they've gone quiet. They came out a little bit hot versus Jags, but let the Jags come back, get the lead, and then they squeaked it out in the end. And then vice versa, started off super quiet, then came roaring back, and then just couldn't fully stop the Lions, but almost got right back to within 1 score there coming out of halftime. And that's not necessarily the type of team I probably want to bet versus the Eagles, which at this point in time have shown no slowing. Texans at the Bears, currently -3. I've seen some -2.5s out there. 2 bad teams. Chicago's ranked 31st in the consensus market rankings. Houston 29th. Houston has put in 2 decent competitive performances. Was beating Denver for half that game. Again, very ugly. But still, they covered the 10. And that was never in doubt, pretty much. And, of course, beat up on the Colts and ended up giving it away and ended up tying. There may be some bonehead coaching decisions. I think not a ton of talent. But this isn't like maybe last year or even the year before that, where there was like the Jags and the Texans and there was maybe the Lions, where there was just like some like really bad teams, like in the Jets too. Like you like could not bet on them.
Yeah.
Bad. Where I don't think the Texans are necessarily in that league this year.
No, we did bet on them, but
yeah.
Which
I wish we actually would have bet on. I know it's like, maybe we're getting too cute betting the Texans two weeks in a row. The thing is, they're plus double digits.
Yeah,
for Denver, and we already had questions though on Denver.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's it. That's a fair point. And 10's a lot of points.
What about this one? Any strong views on this one?
My take.
It's 2 bad teams.
Yeah, 2 bad teams.
This is what I was talking about earlier.
Why are we betting on them? Yeah, no, literally.
Yeah. Lovie Smith revenge game.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I definitely lean the 3 on Houston, but I think the Bears will continue to get better over time.
Even looking at some of our own metrics, drive quality stuff, they're like 24th and 25th, right next to each other. Our model, like predicting this game, has them basically at the same point total.
All right, Jaguars +7 at the LA Chargers. Jags at that full touchdown. Again, on Sunday night, we were talking about how the Chargers might be the play. Jaguars put in 2 good performances, but this is a completely different class of team than what they've played so far. I've had maybe a little bit of second thoughts on that, in the sense of, I don't know if the Chargers are the type of team to pull away and comfortably cover a number like this, even if they're demonstrably the better team.
Yeah.
And I think the Jags are going to be that type of team that always hangs around. Maybe they're down by 3 touchdowns, and then boom in the 4th quarter, and they cover these types of numbers.
A perfect case of something I like to talk about, of how the 7 represents 2 things. Number 1, it's a fundamental value, who's the better team, and number 2, it also represents real points in real games. And I think you make a great point that, like, and ultimately the only thing that matters is the real points in the real games. The market obviously is pricing in Justin Herbert is playing, but there's a chance he doesn't play, even if it's small.
Even if he does play. And I know there's this talk about oh, it's like this particular type of injury, it can't get worse. I don't know what that means. I've never even heard of an injury like that. But in any case, does that give them even extra incentive for a coaching staff that's already inclined to maybe get conservative with a lead down the end of the stretch of the game? Why put your quarterback in drop back position to get nailed in the ribs any more than he potentially has to?
True, but they did put him out against the Chiefs in garbage time last week. They left him out to dry right after the injury, down by 10 with 45 seconds left.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a good point, but it's like I don't know if there's more of a statement to be made there as well. And it's also something that was like happening in the moment. So like they don't know exactly the extent of the injury.
Yeah.
Maybe like now they know what's up.
Yeah.
Now they have a full week to contemplate, and also they're game planning around the fact that this is a known variable. There's more uncertainty then.
Yeah.
And also short-term thinking. I think this probably closes under the 7. I feel like this is the type of thinking that could capture the minds of more bettors as we head into the weekend. And then also, if there is any uncertainty increasing around Herbert maybe not even playing, well, then this is going to obviously crash.
Yeah.
Who's the backup? Do you know? Chase Daniel. Not terrible. He's certainly sufficient for one-off games to win games, especially with the weaponry that they have. But in any case, I actually think I like Jags, especially in the contest if it's 7.
Yeah, I like them in the contest.
And who knows, if you get like one of those weird, like, just again, high variance Chargers type games where they just, what is going on here? Jags just win. And then that's when the Jags party really gets started.
Yeah.
Packers at Tampa. This one was 3 on Sunday night. We talked about liking the Packers at that 3. I already bet Packers +3. Now this is all the way down to 1. The total also crashed. The total opened around 48, crashed full touchdown down to 41.5. I saw it all the way down to 41. I bet the over at the 41. A full 7-point adjustment. I don't care what kind of uncertainties is going on. Maybe it's 13-10 and it goes way under. But I'm willing to roll the dice on 41 with these two teams. Bucs at 1. I know you talked about you like the Packers on Sunday night, certainly at the 3. But what about at the 1?
I don't like it at 1 as much. I wish they weren't playing each other this week, because I think there's a little bit of certainty that, like, oh, this Bucs defense is really good, and like the Packers offense is taking a step back. I'm not really sure though. I think the Packers defense is really good. They were lit up by Justin Jefferson, but I think that's, as we said earlier, a one-time thing. The refusal to like actually just line up Jair Alexander on Justin Jefferson. The Bucs don't have the person who can do that. Well, I don't know. The 3 represented teams that I think are pretty much even.
I think there's still questions out on Green Bay as well, as we saw a miserable performance from them. I'm not talking about, ignore the whole Justin Jefferson aspect.
Offensively, they're terrible.
And then we just saw, all right, well, how good are the Vikings? Maybe the Vikings defense is good, and like this is going to be an unstoppable offense. And then we saw in Philadelphia that is not the case, at least at this point in the season. That was a little bit of a mirage. So how was it a mirage? The Packers created the mirage. And now the Packers beat up on the Bears in Lambeau, where they've historically done that, and the Bears are a bottom 3 team. But now at 1, especially if we get 1 in the contest, I think this is too far sold because we just don't know who the Packers are yet.
I don't think we know what the Bucs are.
At 1, I feel like I'm willing to bet on just Tom Brady.
As opposed to Aaron Rodgers?
Yes.
I don't know about that. To me, those are the same.
They both can be crybabies, but Aaron Rodgers' crybabiness, like, is a pouting way of, it doesn't energize anyone. It weighs on everyone. Whereas Tom Brady's anger ignites pack into, that's why, like, we were even talking about on the live stream, like when we saw, oh, like someone thought like, oh, Brady's like breaking stuff and yelling, oh, that, I feel like that's like a buy signal. Whereas if I hear like Aaron Rodgers pouting, that's not a buy signal.
This is an emotional take. This is like, I don't
well,
like Aaron
totally
Rodgers.
anecdotal, like just.
This is like anecdotal, emotional. I don't like Aaron Rodgers.
First of all, I don't not like Aaron Rodgers. In fact, I like Aaron Rodgers because he's made me a lot of money because actually I always bet on the Packers, the Bears,
Yeah.
and he just always beats the Bears. So
I'm just saying I'm not buying it.
But in any case, we both agree at +1, you can't bet the Packers.
No.
Falcons, wow, down to pick at Seattle. So this was 2, maybe 2.5 on Sunday night when we were talking about it. Talked about we like the Falcons. I didn't think it would move this much.
That's tough.
I thought it should be pick, but I didn't know it would actually move down to pick. Still like the Falcons.
My DFS lineup is going to have Marcus Mariota. It's going to have Drake London, and it's going to have Kyle Pitts. And I think that's a good
Kyle
proxy.
Pitts breakout, finally?
Yeah.
I'm looking bad with my bullish Kyle Pitts call right now. Because as good as the Falcons have looked, they're not even exploiting their best weapon.
No, but I think they're playing the matchups here, and like the tight end position is not the way to beat the Saints. It's not the way to beat the Rams. I think the Falcons offense has a great game, and I'm not buying Seattle's offense.
So do you like the over?
Yeah.
And maybe you get a little bit of flash from Geno again. The other thing is what I want to look more into again is like what some of the play calling was between the two, because it seemed like from an arm's length view that the Seahawks went back to that very traditional, classic Pete Carroll conservative offense.
Yeah.
Running the ball, Kenneth Walker was back, and they really tried to lean on him, which obviously didn't work. We've seen Pete Carroll as well. They're like Russell Wilson goes off and he'll abandon it.
Yeah.
Like a good game from your quarterback by no means incentivizes him to lean away from running the ball. In fact, it almost empowers him to say that. It gives us the ability to run more.
Yeah, I like the Falcons here.
Rams at Cardinals. Rams down to 3. Like, this is the one on Sunday night. I was like, yeah, like, I could see it. I don't feel strongly. But this was 4.5. Now down to 4. Now down to 3. And what am I missing? Is there some news out there?
Dan, do you have anything?
Yeah, Dan's our news guy here.
Dan's the news guy. He feels us out, but yeah, I'm with you here. I'm gonna look. I was just on the Cardinals, right? It's not like
versus a team we hate too.
It's a team we hate, but that's what tells you all you need to know. Okay, the Cardinals got bulldozed by the Chiefs. We thought that was gonna happen. Oh, Rondell Moore coming back? Maybe.
Oh, he's worth 1.5 through a key number.
They're doing a lot there. But look, LA at least showed last week that they're not a train wreck on offense. They had an off week, fine. They're going to score.
If anyone plays bad versus the Bills, it doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying. That's the story that's starting to emerge. But I just like the Cardinals are a good long-term bet, I think. They are. But they're not there yet. They're missing pieces on all. They're starting Greg Dortch as their wide receiver too. The Rams are still in a different class, at least for now, and the 3 is just far too little. This is another alt line spot for me, only because this can get out of hand. Like it would not be shocking for me to see the Rams put up 40.
Yeah.
The Cardinals defense is really bad right now.
Yeah, I'll take some -5 plus 107. I took the -3 at the -130.
You said -5, 107?
Yeah.
Okay. The DraftKings price. -5 is 114.
Hey, every dollar helps.
Every dollar helps. No.
I could see the Rams doing what the Chiefs did to the Cardinals. All right, Niners at Broncos. This one's done a full 3-point flip since Sunday night. On Sunday night, we bet the Niners at that +1.5. Denver was a small home favorite. We thought that was unjustified. And now the Niners here are the road favorite at -1.5. Do you still like it at -1.5?
I think so. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a massive upgrade over what Trey Lance is right now.
Also, I feel like the market is not appreciating this. From my market intelligence gathering, there's all this like very lukewarm, oh, I wanted to see what
Lance.
His name's already out of my memory now.
Yeah. Lance to me.
Trey Lance, yeah.
Yeah. As a football fan, you wanted to see it.
Yeah, but like, I feel like the way that people are talking about it too is like they're not even upgrading. Like it's uncertain whether you would upgrade them. Maybe the variance now has decreased of what the expectations might be, but it's moved up. it's skewed more to more positive outcome.
What's interesting to me, I'm not sure the Denver defense is as good as the market's pricing it in right now. I don't think they've really been tested in games against Seattle and Houston.
Putrid offenses.
Terrible offenses.
Would you say the two bottom 3 or 4 offenses?
Yeah, I think right now.
We think Seattle could be the worst offense.
I think Seattle could be the worst. And like they put their ceiling game together against the Broncos. And it was still 17 points. If you're pricing in a Vic Fangio defense when Vic Fangio's not there, and I don't think the market properly adjusts to loss of coordinator, that also seems like a big market inefficiency. San Francisco's a much better team, I think. This seems like a weird spot. I'm not sure why the line's 1.5. Is there something we're missing on the Broncos? Our drive quality has them at 17 each of the first 2 weeks on offense. If Jerry Jeudy's not playing, by the way, timeout. If Jerry Jeudy's not playing, that's a huge loss. And there's some weird stuff going on where the Broncos receivers are getting open extremely high. And by the way, Jerry Jeudy's one of the best in the league at that. Yet like Wilson is not is throwing like the highest rate of contested balls, even though his receivers are generating the most separation. Just to keep on adding data points here, we talk about bad coaching. Nathaniel Hackett's been a disaster.
Yeah, clearly not ready to be a head coach.
His decision making so far has been as bad as can possibly be. And it wasn't like he corrected it the next week.
What I've heard that his excuses for some of those bad decisions is that they weren't necessarily well thought out, definitive decisions, that they're almost actually reflective of, you've seen some delay of games, and a lot of plays running the clock all the way down, is because they're not coming to a decision fast enough. So they're not prepared. Who's making the call? Who's signing off? Got a bunch of people in his ear and this, that, and the other. That is a reflection of you're not ready for the main stage. And you're seeing a bunch of bonehead decisions get played out on the field. And Shanahan can definitely take advantage of this coaching mismatch.
Yeah, I just checked my least sharp prediction game. The market has it at 53% San Francisco right now. I put it at 64.
Yes, I'm with you. Dallas at New York. This is another line that's plummeted the last couple days. This was 3 on Sunday night, which seemed way too high, even with Cooper Rush. Didn't bet it, but thought that there had to be some pressure moving down. Not necessarily a play on Dallas, but Giants shouldn't be field goal favorites versus anybody. We bet them week 1, won the game outright, won the ATS, bet them on the money line, but we didn't necessarily feel like we're changing our view on the Giants. Another thing that I want us to do on our Sunday night tilt is give our Circa picks, because it's like a well-defined 5 picks, is for us to grade those handicaps. So it's different than just winning the game. We won. But actually, was it a good pick? Was it sound rationale? Did we win it for the reasons why we thought we'd win it?
That's
like Bills, for instance, would be like an
A+,
because it literally played out exactly the way that we thought that it could play out.
Yeah, and Giants week 1's B-. Like got the Titans sell perfectly. Totally whiffed on the Giants being a strong team out of the game.
That's another good point. Is we should really lean in when we're trying to think about what picks we should make for Circa. Is do we have a 2-sided handicap, or is it just one?
We just illustrated a 2-sided handicap for the Niners.
Yes. It also reinforces and re-underwrites what I was talking about earlier, is not betting the less bad team versus the bad team. But it's not a strong buy and a strong sell.
Yep.
That are then matched. Like a 1-sided handicap, barely if that sometimes.
Yeah.
So Cowboys are now at 1. Giants is like mildly more palatable at 1, but maybe this is just, again, bad team with a backup quarterback versus another bad team that hasn't shown any sort of growth.
Distribution of outcomes in this game is endless. Who knows? We don't know anything here.
On prime time, too. So we're not going to express any views on this in any meaningful way. But given that it's Monday Night Football, again, there's a lot of NFL degens out there. They're going to watch any football on a standalone spot. So what do you think is a way that you could express some sort of
first off
view on this?
Yeah, if you want to express some angle, bet a same game parlay. We talked about this last episode about same game parlays are sportsbook's best friend. No, utility of a same game parlay is for this exact market. Have fun. If you're watching a football game, go tell a unique story. Right? You could get 40-1 for one of these outcomes. Go play it out. Here's the outcome. the Giants get absolutely gashed on the ground, go make a fun parlay with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Giants lean into Saquon Barkley in a low-scoring game. Go bet Barkley touchdown, Barkley over rushing yards, game total under. Play, have some fun. Recognize it's fun. And it's not going to be the same sort of betting process where you're really trying to profit and analyze and be on the right side of games. Recognize it for what it is.
Well said. And I also do leaning into a Barkley type play, because that was something that we thought that might really be hammered home, and that Panthers game didn't really necessarily turn out that way. But I don't think they're necessarily dissuaded from trying to lean on Barkley this year, specifically if like Micah Parsons going to be in like Daniel Jones' space, like left and right.
Yeah.
Could get a lot of like dump offs too.
Yeah. That
Barkley breaks for a long touchdown.
If I can get that Micah Parsons sack at plus money, I'll be on it.
I want a Daniel Jones sack fumble 6 from the Cowboys. Why not bet?
Yeah. Okay. I think I got my 5.
So
we'll see what lines are, obviously.
Today. Yeah.
I'm on San Francisco, Atlanta, LA, Baltimore, Buffalo. Jacksonville in 6th.
I like that. So that's road.
Wonderful.
Maybe something to think about. All right. Good stuff. Went through the slate. We're prepared for week 3. Circa lines come out tomorrow, so some changes that we could still make, but we'll again release all those picks in our NFL opening bell newsletter that comes out every Sunday morning. Thanks, Juna. That's closing bell.